Well, hello there, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Testing, this is the check.
You're all good, brother.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, welcome to Aliens, UFOs, and Beyond. This is Renee Chavez hosting today, and Christina's not here, as you can tell, and I'm here sitting in the chair that she might have been sitting in because it's still warm. But anyway, welcome to the show, everyone. And I guess we have a lot to talk about, and I guess we got an hour to talk about stuff. And there's a lot of stuff that are going on in the world today, and of course we've been hearing a lot about the airlines and the plane crash and so forth. And I know that's been heavily in the news. And of course we've been getting a lot of sightings, a lot of weather changes, a lot of earth changes. But now there's a lot of things that are been really curious about my case and so forth, and how I even got involved with all of this. So, to start things off, I see Eddie. Hi, Eddie. My story kind of goes way back so far as, people hear about a walk-in. First of all, a lot of people don't exactly know what a walk-in is, so let me explain this a little bit. A walk-in is basically your spirit self. We all made of energy, and we do become born into this new world or whatever world that you tend to be born in. And many times in cases when an alien entity, alien being, travel around, they're up in with the source, so to speak, and get implanted into the female to be born onto this world so they can experience a new life, learning from the human parents or whatever parents that they come across, whatever world they're born into. So in a lot of these cases, they either become like philosophers, teachers, technicians, people that they become people of great powers, great gifts that they've been bestowed on so they can help teach others and to help mankind to help grow, whether it's in a spiritual sense, technology, learn a lot about medicine and so forth. So now we got, in many cases you got your star children, your rainbow children, and crystal children, and there are various different types of these type of children with various gifts. And like I said, majority of them come at birth onto this world, so that way they have this chemical bond, energy bond with the mother. And then from that point on, they start to learn the language a lot easier than it would for someone just to enter a body. Because when you enter a body when it's already been born and so forth, it's kind of like a crash course. So in my case, it was exactly that. If we turn back the way back clock, before I even came here, I was with a family that was far beyond, and of course, being of a reptilian race, and of course, I want to clarify that too. A lot of people think of negativity about reptilians. There's good and bad in all beings, in the galaxy or throughout the universe. So, before I get too detailed on all that stuff, in my case is we had an assignment to go on. It was my father, my mother, and several of our other crew members were sent toward Earth to try to find out what happened to the very last craft that came out here in 1947. 1947, we all know that's the Roswell crash. We had lost a signal from them, so we were set to find them. Well, it took some time before we even got that assignment to come here. So as we took our journey here, and about halfway here between almost near the moon is we had a conflict. The conflict with another alien race that's out there, and a lot of people don't understand that there is a war going out there, and it's still continuing right now to this day. But right now it was at a point where being with my family of the reptilian race at that time, after we had been attacked and we had to, we still had to finish the mission to get here. So we had to, basically I was sent off with a very small crew with a smaller ship to head toward Earth. So left the mothership, was over by the moon. Now where I got into close proximity of the Earth and into the atmosphere, and we're still on the New Mexico area. So it is very questionable what exactly happened, because when we seemed to have gotten attacked, and of course that would cause the crash, but we didn't understand what kind of weapon was used, because we knew Earth shouldn't have had certain type of weapons of that period. And at this time, this was like in March of 1948. So when we came in through this as well, we got shot down. And then later came down to to the Earth and crashed in what everybody calls the Aztec crash. There was a few of us in there, and some were still alive, and a few other had died. But it didn't take long for the military to come after us at that time. And so at that time, they're picking up the bodies, and this is the military at the time, 1948. Basically, some were put on ice and taken away, and some of us were put into these covered trucks. And then we were taken to an undisclosed place for a brief amount of time, and then later on taken to what everybody else knows as Area 51. Now, mind you that there were others that were down there at Area 51. Some were from the original crash, and then some were there before the whole Roswell crash. So there were other aliens that were already there. So in that time when I noticed that there were others that were there were other like Greys and other reptilians and some insectoids. So what happened then was I was placed into a room. Every so often during that period I was always questioned, and it was to go on for hours. And I did not want to speak, let alone I didn't quite understand the language at the time. So anyway, the officers would come in. They would have a doctor that was always present at the time, and a couple of guards that were always there. They would often offer food at times. This is like early on, so they would like offer food if I want to eat something. So most of the time they would give you fruits, kind of situation, things like that. But they were trying to question me, and what they were basically asking me why were they there? It's the usual, questions that they would ask. What am I doing here? Do I have anything to do with the other sightings, that's been surrounding the Earth at that time? And, of course, I wasn't involved until later. But after going through all the questions, they want to know exactly how the craft actually works. So they're asking about that. What does it do? I know they're asking about weapons. And so what they there were points where there were a couple others that had died while I stayed there. And so I always felt that one had left, and then a few months later another one would die. But then I started questioning how they were dying too, because they weren't getting much information. Some were too injured to survive the questioning. So I spent a good number of years there, right up to 1968. Now, they went day in and day out, doing the whole interrogation thing, and I remember seeing other creatures that were down there, and they were doing some other kind of experimentations and so forth. They went as far as using electricity, using shock treatments, the typical military interrogation, because I was uncooperative. They wanted me to do stuff, I didn't cooperate. So it was like until 1968 when I felt one of our others had passed on. There was someone that I was actually close to at that time. That's when I felt like I really needed to get out of there. So when they were serving me food, they always kind of kept us, most of the time, trying to make sure that we were docile and quiet and so forth. And so I've been kind of peaceful throughout the whole time that I've been there. But until that point, it caught them off guard when I've actually lunged through them and through the door and started running down the hall. It was a pretty, good-sized corridor, and it was kind of lengthy corners, and it was like cemented walls all the way down and a few doors. And then I remember making a right turn, and then next was a left turn down this hallway, and trying to find a way out, because I didn't know how my whole way around there at the time. But found my way into, which was looked like a storage room. I ended up in there, and at that point, the MPs and the other soldiers were dispatched, and of course the officer at the time was there. So I was cornered, and I knew that was my moment. And the general that was there, basically he asked for the sidearm from one of the soldiers, and basically he just said, I had enough of this shit, and then he just reached out and pulled the trigger and basically shot me in the head. So when that point happened, remember me falling down, and then my spirit was drifting out of my body, and I saw myself laying there, and I saw him, actually kick me, and he kind of like smirked, and but after that point on, that's when I started going through the ceiling and out of the complex. So the sad part is, that I had to leave whoever other ones that I've had there behind, and having to die to get out of the facility. So eventually made it up to the surface. I noticed I was still in a desert area in Nevada. and there was two other light beings, kind of like angelic kind of beings, leading me around basically. And instead of going up to the light in the sky, they led me to the Sacramento area in California. So once I made it toward that area, and it was like I think it was like a Sunday afternoon or something like that, if I remember correctly. They pointed me out to a boy had fallen out of a tree. And at that time, you can see his life force, his spirit leaves his body. The angels that were with me, they both pointed in unison that I had to go to that particular body. So at that time, I didn't question it. So I went in, and then noticing a family coming out, and I felt what it was like being in his body. Movement in the spine around the neck area. So apparently the boy had fallen and did something to his neck, which caused him to be deceased. Caused it to repair itself, and seeing this family run out and everything, then I'm kind of snapped awake inside this body. So some were speaking English, some were speaking Spanish. Well, strangely enough, I didn't understand either of them. I started speaking. They didn't understand what I was saying. So I don't know, between reptilians and English and Spanish, and that's an interesting combination to speak. But anyway, I was taken to a hospital. Basically, they gave me a clean bill of health, other than I must have had a bad bump and it'll be okay kind of thing from the doctor. So, going back home and everything, and I couldn't go to school for about a couple of weeks, but then I had to take some special classes, special tutoring to learn to speak. So from that point on, I started picking up the language little by little throughout the years. Started going, regular public school, and then, started to pick up the English language pretty much. But after a while, I started to kind of feel like I was part of something at first, being a human child, and, this is not so bad. It's a little confusing. And to understand that my family, part of the family was Catholic, and another part was basically of another Christian group of people who really, didn't believe that extraterrestrial life and so forth. So when I would, every so often when I would actually go to sleep, I would actually be able to speak my original language in my sleep. But at that time, certain memories were blocked at that time. So I had to go through various steps to go through certain memories to understand what I was going through. Just, trying to live inside of a human body with limited memory basically is a protection for myself, so I can actually grow older and be ready for what's going to take place in the future. So when you have to go through that kind of thing, it takes a lot of time, a lot of patience to try to understand why I was going through that I was going through. I mean, because I don't hear too much about all this, and during that period, and when I was in So we're great with that. So I was about 10 years old. There was a sighting there of a craft, and I was with some friends playing at playing at the schoolyard, and just playing catch, the usual 10-year-old thing do. And at that time, a craft had shown up on the lawn of the schoolyard. My two friends that I was playing with, they both had stopped, and they were they looked stunned at staring at something that was behind me. So I turned around and looked over and seeing this craft that was in there. And I didn't show any sign of fear. It just, I felt compelled to go up to it. So it had this kind of a wedge shape, armadillo-ish, kind of looked like some kind of weird armored thing that's able to move, kind of transform, whatever. I tried to actually touch it with my hand, and it had this unusual energy. You could feel it vibrate through your arm, and it felt like going up through your chest, and it felt like it just touched a live wire kind of thing. And after walking around it, looking at all different angles of my curiosity, it had this bellowy sound. It sounded like, bellow in a furnace, at an iron mill or something. So it just kind of had this unusual sound for a type of craft or whatever it was at that time. So at that time, I lived right next door to the school, and so what immediate thing that I wanted to do, I wanted to go tell my mom. So I went to go tell my mom, jumped on the fence, and I heard this static sound and crackly sound, and I looked at the craft, and then it had this hissing, and then it kind of did this fade out into it actually sounded like it popped, and then it was gone. At that moment, where my friends were still standing, frozen, I noticed that I was no longer where I was before, that now they saw me on a fence. So they didn't know that I went from one spot to another spot. So that's how I realized that, they were kind of frozen in time from the craft itself. I just kind of looked at them, and then I just finished jumping off the fence and go and get my mom. Of course, Mom just kind of brushed it off. Yeah, she just kind of do what moms do. So after that point, I went to see my friends the next day at school, and they basically didn't want anything to do with me. They were kind of a little freaked out about it. Apparently it just got through the whole school, but whatever, for our classroom. So that kind of limited the friendships that I've had there. So I just had to deal with that. So it took a few more years of going through junior high, and it was not so much happened to my junior high years, but until high school, things started to pick up again. I started to have flashbacks and dreams, really weird dreams, and basically what I was going through was reminders of what I was, where I'd been, but just couldn't quite put the puzzle together. I would start writing this dialect. I would draw, like one drawing after another. Through high school, I met up with a cousin of mine. He became a cousin by marriage. And he started having these unusual type dreams too. And he found himself in the same dreams that we were going through. And it turned out that he was somebody that I knew from that same kind of past of one of our allies. But at that time, it wasn't exactly clear, and we just kind of toyed around with it. We had abilities together, able to, to conjure something up, to bring it into this world that you can actually become visible to it. You can actually see structures, seeing crafts that even a security guard happened to see one of the crafts that was supposed to be one of ours back from our past. So the more and more we started playing around with this and not quite understanding why we're able to do so. So it has it's always been strange to try to figure out what it was, because I'm pretty sure, like Christina, trying to figure out, about her gifts and what she's supposed to do with her, is she a witch? Is she, why does she have all these things, these abilities? And all these questions kind of go into mind. So it wasn't until a lot later in years, my cousin went on his way. He got married, and his wife didn't want anything to do with this stuff, so it kind of went separate ways. But then I later got married and had a wonderful wife and a little stepson, and then we were about to have our first child. And again, we were still involved with that particular Christian religion, which was pretty argumentative of the things that I kept trying to point out, and I was always wrong, so they say. So, but my wife at the time, she noticed all the things that are going on. She's seen all the unusual paranormal activity that went on, the strange voices that would come through that would try to communicate with me, and mind you, they weren't demonic. I wanted to clarify that too. These were not demonic beings, but there were others beings that were not of the light, put it that way, but they weren't demons. So we had a lot of challenges in our marriage and with the family members and so forth. Things were getting a little harder to explain. So, which later, we've had our firstborn, and about 2 months in, our child started having problems, breathing, having seizures and so forth, and so we kept going to the doctors and so forth to try to find out what was wrong with our child. And so the only thing they can come up with, our baby can grow out of it or so forth. They gave us a meter and so forth to try to monitor her movements and everything and find out what was wrong. So one time that my wife took the baby and visited the grandma and so forth, and at that time, when they came back, it was late in the evening. They were tired, and our baby was really tired. Apparently, the baby was really fussing a lot, pretty traumatically. So they had, the baby girls finally went to sleep finally. So when they came home, so we went to bed, and the baby was late to go to sleep, and my wife decided she didn't want to put the monitor on the baby, and so she didn't want to wake her up, and she's finally fallen asleep, and I was wasn't too sure about that, but then, you know, he seemed to be sleeping, you know, just fine right now. So we did, you know, we just went to sleep. So wife went to go check on the baby later, and she's basically panicked. And she came and got me and went into the room and found out that our child had passed. We had our neighbors from upstairs to come down, and they were checking on her too, as they called the ambulance and so forth. And by the time we got to the hospital, our daughter was actually pronounced dead at the scene. So that was a really tough blow at that time, and it was like we didn't know what to think about it. And of course, the family and the congregation at that time were basically blaming the dark stuff that was going on, the stuff that they couldn't explain. They automatically said it was demons and so forth, and kind of blamed me because it seemed like I brought them in. So I pretty much took the brunt of all that. And about a week after the funeral, my wife at the time, you know, just picked up and left the state. So that kind of left me in the morning by myself. So, you know, I felt like I failed my family at the time, and you know, with all these weird abilities that I have and stuff, I felt like I failed. I didn't know how to handle that at the time, and so I basically had planned to, you know, to end my life at that time. I had, you know, the knife that I was going to, you know, basically run it through my heart, you know, just kind of, you know, do it Japanese style, do a little harakiri. So I was going to do that, and I thrust in really hard, but something had grabbed my arms. Something really strong grabbed my arms. I kept trying to use my full force to go through with it. And then this, you know, I heard this voice says, "You are not done. You still have much to do. You are not done." And after hearing that voice, before even that happened, this can be kind of humorous, but at the same time, I think the powers that be were letting me know not to do it. The phone kept ringing. One was my aunt trying to call me, seeing if I was okay. Next was a cousin was trying to call me, seeing if I was okay. And then the last one was my mother. And, you know, seeing okay, and I just kind of said, "Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay." Then I went, after talking to my mom for a few minutes, and then I went back to where I was going to finish what I was going to do. So at that time, that's when I was ready to just end it all at that time, because, you know, like I said, I felt like I totally failed life here. So, because I couldn't tell anybody exactly what was going on, because automatically they thought it was demons, and so I couldn't handle, you know, that situation too well. So after that, when I heard that voice telling me, you know, that it's not my time, I have much to do, you know, everything is unfinished and unclear, that I need to finish what I need to do. At that point, I had dropped the knife and ran outside, out to the patio in the back, and fell to my knees, and then I just started bawling. I mean, I just cried so hard, and it was nighttime at the time, and I just asking God, what did I do wrong? I mean, why am I going through this? And at that moment, I started feeling this surrounding energy around me. It felt really strong, like it was trying to calm me down. So I try to make heads or tails of all that at that time, trying to figure out, why are you trying to stop me? Why do I have to keep doing this? And they were just basically letting me know that it's not my time. There are others that need to come, and they will come to you. So at the time, I didn't know what that meant. But after that point, kind of gathered myself up and tried to figure out why this is even going on. Who am I supposed to see? Who's going to come into the picture that's going to help me through all this? So, during that period, I became part of a television crew of an access television station, working on a couple of shows, and eventually I ended up with more shows. But this one particular producer, director, Ron Williams, great man. He's noticed that I've been through a lot. He knew about all the strange dreams I was having. He knew that I would wake up talking a different language. He also noticed I've been drawing strange writings and crop circles. And he says, I want to find out what's really going on with you because I'm really worried about you, buddy. And so he decided he wanted to take me to James Harder, Dr. James Harder in Berkeley. And so he's also one of the ones that helped with Travis Walton and also with Betty and Barney Hill. So they wanted to regress me. So they made arrangement. I was reluctant. I was really reluctant. It's like, oh, great, I don't want anybody going to my head. Because I always heard the horror stories about being regressed or hypnotized. And so, but anyway, I went, and he says, do you feel all right if we did it, with a crowd of people? And it's like, how many is a crowd of people? About 30, maybe 40. Well, it turned out to be about 50 or 60 that were there to witness this. And talk about pressure. So at that time, he introduced me to him, and he said, "There's no reason to worry. He's going to, walk you through it. It's just a matter of relaxing." And so he did. It's probably not the way that I wanted it done because I didn't know that there was other ways of going about regression as a third party. I didn't know about that at that time, but I went as first party. So he took me back through time on how I even came here, and then he took me back further to where I was from, and seeing what I looked like, seeing the turmoil that I went through even back then in the other form. So more and more started to become a little more clearer. So after he brought me back out of the regression, I just noticed I had this crowd of people. It's kind of like going through a door and seeing a bunch of reporters sticking a microphone in their face. So talk about traumatic. And so, they want to know about the future. They want to know about why are they here. They want to know about all these questions as it's rolling out of their little mouths. But I had to step outside for a while to clear, my head to let it sink in. But right then and there, that's when the floodgates started to open up with memories. Like, oh, God, I remember that. You know, I remember my home. I remember my family back then, of my home, what we looked like, what we stood for. You know, we protected universal law, and remembering the reason why we came here in the first place. And it's like, oh, crap, I never finished it. But now that I've lived here on Earth, I had to readjust myself of my thinking into the mission. It's like, now I was sent here to look for those from 1947. Well, I kind of found one of them, and maybe possible another in these recent couple years. So I can't say that I failed completely of that mission, but now I'm starting to find others who are just like me that are all over. Walk-ins, those who had encounters, others who have been abductees, and those who are hybrids. All this is all starting to come into play now. Starting to understand, like, I need to find others just like myself. So when I started to realize that there's a lot more to the whole ball game, so to speak, it allowed me to network with other people. Friend Robin Scott knew me through those years of doing the television show, because he was also one of the crew members of the team. So we've had several meetings of people who've had experience and wonder about their past lives and so forth. So we made these kind of connections to try to help people to try to learn there's just more to this life than just here. So it was an eye-opener. It felt good to do it. But even at that, I have to be careful in how I did so. Because not everybody can take a straight-up flash of memory and make heads or tails of it, or it can be too much for the individual. So I've learned how to look into the eyes of the person, but able to talk a person into almost like a regression almost, but more like a getting in touch with themselves. It's pretty easy for me to do, but I have to be careful with the individual. So when I do so, I have to do it in such a way that it's not going to harm them, but I want that particular person, each individual, to search themselves. I just lead them to the doorway, basically. And, you know, when I look back from the first regression, that was so intense at that time, and as that floodgate started to open, and so now Dr. Harder wanted to learn more. So he had me with 3 or 4 different other sessions, and he just could not believe what was going on. He just was so intrigued that there's a whole lot more going on the earth than meets the eye. And so that's why we are today, now, we are facing with, the whole global warming. We're facing these other things that are taking place around our UFO community, the eye-opening things that are taking place now. People have to be educated that there's not just, like the bad reptilians that are controlling a lot of things, but there are other races that are involved in it as well. And so it takes a lot of deep thought, a lot of deep meditation, which I meditate, daily, sometimes more than once, but to have a clear mind and understanding to see things more clearly from various points of view. Pay attention to what's around you. So, we have, like Robin says, we represent universal law, and I have to do it. I have to take a stand for universal law and to help those to do so as well, because these laws were given to protect us, just like a mother will keep a child from touching the flame because it's hot. Our fathers and forefathers or ancestors knew what could happen if we take the wrong steps and what the consequences could happen, and trying to protect this planet from the pollution. And now we got to deal with radiation. We got to deal with HAARP. We got to deal with water pollution, air pollution, and now our food is being tainted. So there's a lot that we have to really take charge to try to save what's left of humanity. And in the war between good and bad, it's happening right now. It's already happening. There are some that are in charge of the military right now, and of course using the Earth forces against each other like pawns, and creating these conflicts and red flags and keeping all these secrets. But if you notice between, I would say the late 80s into the 90s up to now, at first there was like this shaded area of what was bad. We kind of let things go, kind of let things slide. When we see something bad, well, I guess that's not that bad. But now, truth is truth, false is false. There's light and then there's dark. There's not that gray area anymore, because more and more the knowledge of us being down here, involved with mankind, and here they are right now with NASA trying to stop us from seeing the live feed, because they don't want us to see what's really going on out there. So we have to keep all our senses, no matter how far-fetched you may think it is, because we all got the gift. Every being on Earth has the gift. It's your choice that you have to use it for what is right, what is good, or the opposite. But there's always consequences, though. There's been so much action in the recent years, and of course, like Ed Grimsley would use his night vision to see what was going on out there, and you can actually see an actual battle taking place. NASA has caught video of a battle going on out there, and we got Bigelow building stations out there as well. So there's a whole lot going on then in meets the eye. And of course, NASA was warned to stay away from the moon, and they're getting the same kind of warning to stay away from Mars. So that I could totally get. I get it. I understand that, we would like to see mankind to grow into, to another form of exploration. We're still exploring things here on the Earth, but there's a lot to explore out there, and we have that dream to explore. We learned this from Star Trek, that curiosity. We want to see what other worlds are like. But if you look at it in all honesty, with the type of mentality that mankind has right now, you think it's safe? Because here we are having wars among ourselves, and you just kind of wonder, am I going to be able to survive till tomorrow? Is China going to attack us? Are we going to have a war against Korea? Are we going to have a war against this country or that country? We're going to be dealing with nuclear weapons all over again? Are we going to, and this is the kind of thoughts that When it comes to universal law, it has to be protected, and hostilities will not be allowed. And it's kind of like a quarantine planet, and we only have a certain range to scope. And so basically it's for mankind's protection, and I know it will stop eventually. People heard about the rapture and so forth. That stuff will take place. I know Christina's been having dreams about what looks like an invasion, and other times seeing what people are being collected. Nobody knows exactly how this whole rapture thing is going to take place, but we know it's going to happen fast. And, these ones will be able to see life on other worlds. These people will be able to see things that are totally different than you could ever imagine. And I think that's what our prime goal is. And they're still going to have to live the life down here because mankind hasn't quite learned the lessons. The value, what it is to keep the planet safe and sane. And as Robin saying about Gene Roddenberry, was one of them. Could be. He had a dream. He had the right heart to want to see, the excitement of seeing other worlds, other races. But don't you think we need to learn to get along with each other, with the races that are down here? If you can't handle a person's color or different creed or where they're from, how are we going to handle when they're totally different? When you see a reptilian walking up the street with you, are you going to, oh God, I'm going to go the other direction? So I had to learn all this. I had to learn not to hate, learn not to hate humans, because being shot down, it's like, whoa, really? And being tortured, being in the underground, and of course, later on, loss of family and everything else. So a lot of turmoil took place. So I was feeling a lot of anger. But I look back, and I was raised by a loving Earth Mother who loved me to death, and she has passed on now, and she's in a far better place. But she raised me the best way she could. I have another cousin in L.A. who suspects that I'm different from somewhere else, and so she is very open to it as well. And it's just a matter of how we conduct ourselves, basically. Are we willing to learn to make changes? Because, I see the good and bad in everything. And I always try to look for the best in mankind, and those are the ones I reach out to. That's how I found Christina, and we were meant to meet each other too, because we met, you're on Facebook, and so it just seemed so amazing. So I guess we're getting close to the end of the show, close right there. Wow. And so it's just a matter of us really pulling together in the UFO and spiritual community, and even those in the paranormal community, that things are connected. We just have to really open our minds and our hearts to pull together as one, because it's not meant to be a secret. It's meant for all of us to learn from it. So let's see. I think they gave me an hour, if I remember correctly. But anyway, on top of that, if you want to be able to reach me, you can reach me right on Facebook, as usual. Renee Chavez, I'm easy to find. And still, with P.P.R.S, with Christina. And so, where she's at, I'm not too far away from her. So, literally, we're in the same town. What else do I need to speak of? I know we got a lot of great guests coming up. We got some, I think we're trying to get Ruben Uriarty to come on the show and talk about his involvement with working with MUFON and so forth. So I'm really looking forward to hearing his stuff. And, of course, if you caught the new show about MUFON, I think it's Hangar 1. It's really a very, very great show. So catch that. And I'll be seeing Ruben this Saturday at our MUFON meeting, which will be great in Sacramento at the Cocos and on Arden. If you're in the area, you got to come. But let's see. Do I have another hour? Respond from crew? I guess, yeah. Look at our time, and of course you can reach Christina, usually on Facebook as well. So I'm still keeping her seat warm. Okay, let me check to see if I'm still on. If I cut off, and then I guess that's the end of the show. But if not, then I can keep on talking. So if any of you have any questions, feel free to ask any questions. Let's see. Oh, I see Robin in there. I see Eddie. Hey, Eddie. Let's see. I think we're still on. Okay. But anyway, yeah, we'd just like to be able to communicate with a lot more people like us. So I would like to, to extend it out to you folks out there. Oh yeah, we'll stay safe in the weather because we know we've been getting a lot of thunder and lightning, a lot of hail, and we had a funnel cloud out in the area, and also just north of us too as well. There's also a chance of tornadoes too. So we got some really interesting weather, and if it has anything to do with the weather modification, probably a good chance of that. But see, anybody else has any other questions out there? Anything you want to ask? Because I'm open for questions. Okay. So let's see. But anyway, I'll keep on talking because apparently I'm not cut off, so I'm good. Okay. Well, anyway, after I had learned all this stuff, I learned to reach out to others and to find others like myself, as I have mentioned. And so I decided to, join with P.P.R.S. and with Christina, and of course several members of our team are very talented, very special. We treat each other like a family and love everybody to death. And we've learned a lot about each other, and just certain things you just can't take for granted because it's who we are. Things are there for a reason. Like met a friend, Robin Scott, who I knew him for years, and we worked together on radio, and as well as on the television shows where we used to work at called Access Sacramento, which was a lot of fun. And then meeting with Christina and the rest of the team, it just seemed like we were all a perfect fit. And you got to look at the aspects of why we meet people at a particular time. Sometimes you may, be at the end of the rope and not have any answers what to do until you meet that specific person that pulls you out of the, that kind of a funk that you might be in. So it just, I have to look at things were meant to happen, and Christina could agree with me on that, because we've done that so many times. So I always found that to be a true blessing. So I'd like to see if anybody has had any sightings in your area. I know we've been getting some around here, and we've recently been hearing about black triangles again, and there's stuff going on through Fresno. I know that I have a challenge of finding things. Robin could attest to that. You put me on Google Earth, and I'm finding it. From various bases, underground bases, underwater bases too, as well. There's one by Malibu that I've discovered, and looking at the military's tunneling maps, where they go and everything, points exactly to the exact same spot. And I'm seeing this, are sightings increasing? Absolutely. I would say that they are. We got a lot going on in California now, and hence what's going on, with NASA and why they want to, cut the live streaming. And this is from Eddie. I see something about HARP. Yep, HARP is really increased in, when I know they said they were going to shut it down. Nah, not even. There are several HARP stations around the globe. And, it's kind of hard to work with just one HARP to create for their agenda. So they have many HARPs. And if I remember correctly, they also have HARP also on ships as well. So this is something that I found pretty interesting. So I studied HARP for quite some time and studied how it affects the weather and also how it affects earthquakes. Now, you ever notice when they have various steps for various features when they lay out the chemtrails. Sometimes they lay it more like an aerosol mist, and you can see it like it change colors, kind of thing. It looks like a little rainbow. And so what happens with HARP is when they release the chemtrails, it thins out, and it turns into like a white sheet. Now, what they do with that, they can manipulate the shape of that particular sheet of cloud or chemtrail. And what happens is they superheat it. And when they superheat it, it can actually, with the aluminum that's in there, to create like a reflective surface. And it turns it into like a bowl, like a parabolic bowl. It can have it inverted or outverted. So that's one of the things I figured out as I paid attention a lot more to HARP when they're having more incidents taking place. A lot of times they'll leave what we call HARP rings. You'll be able to see it through Doppler. It'll leave like a little ring, like a donut, or it'll leave like a fan, even too sometimes. When this happens, when it creates this bowl that turns like a parabolic dish, and think about this too. This is when everybody was hearing those strange sounds coming from the sky, everybody's looking all over where this sound's coming from. It's coming from the sky. And I think it's coming actually from that variously parabolic dish that's in the air. So when that happens, they're able to adjust the magnitude, the frequency to either cause the weather to change, or if they point it down in certain ways and to pick a target, and it causes this effect to the Earth itself and the Earth's surface, which we understand as earthquakes. Now, these different frequencies affect us as well, because we are made up the same way like the Earth. We have our north, we have our south, we have our chakras, and it affects us in various ways too. It can also create madness in a person, cause headaches, illnesses, even cancer. So all these different things that it can cause us. And yes, Robin, there is a difference between a contrail and a chemtrail. The contrail is just basically, the vapor between, coming from the jet engines and it's mixing with the colder air. And so that's what will leave like a contrail, but quickly dissipates. So it doesn't last long. It just, it's like somebody falling with an eraser right behind it, and it's gone. But chemtrails will totally last. And the more that they've been working on these chemtrails, have you noticed the clouds haven't been looking like your popcorn clouds anymore? That puffy cloud? Well, that's why. Because once it mixes into the cloud, it can't create the form that they used to make naturally. And that's when it rains, it's actually dirty rain. So you can imagine what your drinking water is right now. So, and even with the filtration, of course, it still has the particles and other things that are in it. So, and of course, adding fluoride and so forth. So, when they started using these chemtrails and so forth, and this kind of cloud seeding was also used in Vietnam to slow down the enemy at the time. So, this tactic has been used as a weapon for many years. So things still haven't changed. They just got more powerful. Let's see. Anybody else have any questions out there? Feel free. And if you have any UFO sightings or if you've had UFO experience, alien contact, abductions, feel free to ask questions because I'm not here. And meanwhile, I've noticed that people have been posting a lot of stuff about a lot of UFOs, especially a lot of this triangle craft, and I noticed there's a lot been going on in Fresno again. And so we got to pay attention to the particular skies in our areas. We have to learn how to tell the difference between an actual UFO or it's a mistaken identity kind of thing, because that happens quite a bit. Because if you look at how you are in we are around it, like various airports that are around your area, knowing your sky, that's always pay attention to. I always tell people, pay attention to your sky. Learn its traffic patterns, along with the type of weather too, because sometimes they change the runways around. So next you find them taking off a different direction. Like, wait a minute, they're taking off from there, not landing that way. So you have to learn how about that too. But wind direction, and sometimes they change the direction where the plane's going to take off from the runways. So learning about your sky is when you're looking at, say, like you see a light coming at you, you just look like it's just sitting there. Is that a UFO? A lot of times, they kind of makes you wonder because it's there. It's really bright. But if you look at the candle power of these landing lights of these planes, are incredible. You can see them for miles before they even get into the city. So when you see it coming toward you, it's extremely bright, and you could probably take your cameras or use your phone to take pictures. And it's like, you got a UFO, and you're getting all excited about it. It looks like it's staying there. But now you're starting to notice it's starting to move a little bit, maybe to the right or the left, and then it's not as bright. It's starting to change a little bit. And until it's close enough, and also you'll see the little navigation lights, the red and green lights, and it's like, oh, it's just a plane. So that happens a lot, and a lot of MUFON investigators hear this quite a bit, especially when they go into the database and with the FAA and find out, well, it was was a plane. It was Southwest or somebody else up there, and they could get the exact time where it actually flew that path. So that's another thing too, just learning how to see how an airplane behaves, especially when it's coming towards you. It can just look like it's just staying there. Hello, somebody there? I heard somebody. I'm hearing sounds. Anyway, what else can we talk about? We got, misidentifications of UFOs, and of course, worldwide we got a lot of crafts that are out there that are being spotted. I noticed a lot of friends, and even here on my page, a lot of people are talking about a lot about this Skinwalker Ranch. Is things still taking place there, or they heard everything's quieted down? But no, it hasn't quieted down. Things are still taking place there, but they just kind of keep it on the down low because basically they're just trying to keep the public out of it. And so they got guards there. They got armed guards keeping an eye on the place too. So that's where you have to be careful when you know that there's something going on like that. Unless if you're with a very experienced team that knows that area, I would definitely suggest that you wouldn't go there without having that kind of protection, with that kind of insight to know the place. Area 51 is very active, absolutely, and there's plenty of other bases too, like there's Dulce. It's been talked about quite a lot lately, about the underground there and the many levels there, and genetic engineering as well. And what I found out to be true about it, a couple of friends on my friends list and have been there, and so the natives know about it. They see stuff all the time, and it's been happening for quite some time there. And there is a group of beings in there working with the military at that particular location. We got a whole underground network from one end of the country to the other side, even underwater. We got places over there in Florida. We got genetic engineering and biowarfare up in Plum Island, just north of Manhattan. So that we got things going on there where you have the Montauk Monster wash up. And that's just not the only creature that's washed up, too, in that area. So there are a lot of things that are going on that people really need to pay attention to, what's going on, what our government's involved with and what they're not involved with. And are there extraterrestrials involved? Yes, they are. There's, and a lot of the times they have, people say that they seem like heartless and cold, like grays. They talk about them. The drones are. These are manufactured. These type of beings are totally manufactured. The beings that I've seen that are, the grays and everything, they do have feelings. Sure, they may not be like yours, but they do have feelings. They know how to feel sad. They know how to feel happy and so forth. They have a great concern, or the ones that I'm familiar with have a great concern of what's happening here, and they want to try to save this planet. They're trying to save humanity as best they can. But they already know that the government is basically targeting them. Even us reptilians, too. They target us, too. But that's why a lot of these encounters are so far few in between, because people wonder why don't they just land on, White House lawn. It's like, why? They'll just be shot at. Haven't you seen the Dangerous Stood Still? Come on now. You look like one of us, and, one of the good, like human, they still shot at him. But anyway, that's what Hollywood seems to promote, too. If it's from out there, we got to shoot it. If it came out of the sea, we better shoot it. It's like the whole Bigfoot thing. Well, I don't know what it is, but I better shoot it. God, people. Tell me. Give me a break, okay? If you could study things and, use some curiosity instead of fear, you might learn a lot more. Just like if you met someone for the first time, oh, yeah, you're scared. I don't know what they're going to think of me. But if you start talking with them, maybe you might get some dialect going and some understanding of where you're from, because we get so judgmental about that, too. A little paranoid, it's like, what if they don't like me? Well, we'll never know if you don't talk to them. We do have to learn to interact with one another, just like I had to learn how to interact with people, even on Facebook, and even it's kind of weird when you're trying to, use Facebook as an interaction, but that's another form of communication. But you think about how you want to communicate with beings. What would you want to say? What would you want to know? You got to really trust your true inner feelings, your inner self, knowing about yourself, that you might be able to be more susceptible to understanding about these other beings and each other. Because people act like that, even with other people from other countries, because everybody's paranoid about terrorism and all this other stuff. It's like, yeah, the danger's there. I mean, I'm not trying to make light of that, but we have to understand various cultures, various people, and other people's, even their religions, because we don't want to be the one to say, I think your religion is bunk, because we're surrounded by religion everywhere. So it is not our place, to judge people because of that. It's not in our place to judge people, period. But we try to do what I can to try to gain any kind of understanding about the people we meet, and having a conversation, because like I said, there's the first time that you've met someone and you were nervous probably. It's the same thing about dating. Talk about scary. Oh, my God. But anyway, people need to take their time of understanding and communicating with one another to develop that understanding more deeply. Because our friends up there don't want anything to happen down here. Mankind has come a long way. It really has. I mean, like I said, the veil has been lifted. There's no shady area. You open your eyes, you see this conflict now. You see that there's light and there's dark. No doubt. And so now that you're starting to reach into these other realms of, there's more to space than just us. There's more to learn than just in my little world. We're learning a lot more about the paranormal, even more so, because now, what is paranormal? Things that are exactly not normal, what we're used to. When you look at all the different groups that are out there, the teams out there, the paranormal is normal to them. So you think about it. We are as normal as anyone else. If we're from out there, that's normal. What humans are doing is like a little abnormal, but we join with them and make it a part of our lives. And you guys are awesome, a lot to learn. But if we were to sit all in the room, you get these various races, on Earth, and meet with various races from out there, what would you talk about? What would you want to know? Because they would straight up tell you. You ask a reptilian, say about some abductions. If you ask a reptilian, what are you going to do with me? They would more likely tell you. But you have to be careful in how you say it. If you ask it kind of like, I shouldn't say nicely, but very subtle, very quietly, what are you going to do with me? They may not respond right away. But if you have a more stern voice to it, they'll respond to you, and they'll explain to you why you are there. They're kind of direct kind of thing. They respect a direct communication like that. Reptilians can be rough. I mean, they're kind of big and bulky anyway, so they do seem to be a little more rougher and everything. But at the same time, they can be kind and gentle, especially if you were to look into their eyes and everything too. They can understand that you have a certain fear. They don't want you to feel fear, depending on the different races that are out there too. That's the other part too. There are some that are more subtle. There are some that are very highly spiritual. It's like talking to a monk. Some reptilians are like that too. Highly spiritual, highly advanced. They're like priests kind of thing. Others are more soldier-like. They're more of a protector, a guardian. So that's basically where I fit in, or part of the guardianship. So I had a lot to learn about what it is to be human and how to gauge myself too, how to communicate in such a way that I'm not too over the top, but not too subtle either. Some people can take it, and then others can't. And there's a lot of times when I wouldn't even say anything at all until they actually got to know me. And Robin Scott in chat knows that I'm that way too. So I just kind of keep it down low until people talk about reptilians being bad, but you're talking to one now. And so it's just a matter of not to be too judgmental, because until you actually meet one and understand, they're just like you and I. And, I'm no one special, really, because just like Christina, we're living life just like anyone else. We go through our struggles just like anyone else. We have our good days, we got our bad days. We had to overcome a lot of things too. So, just continue to, be yourself, get to know each other. Let's see, what else? We got other news. Our raid had finally stopped. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah, Robin says, can I take a call? Sure, I can take a call. You want to call? Go ahead, Robin. Go ahead. The number is right up there. 713-955-0384. Come on, give me a call, and I'll be happy to take your call. So go right ahead. You're in queue? Did you get me in there? you push 1 yet, sir? Ma'am? Okay. How do we get in there? Get you in there. Try to get you in there real quick if I can. Let's see. Is it dead air? Can you hear me now?
Honey, you're not on dead air. Did you want to end the show?
Oh, okay. I think somebody was trying to call. Somebody in queue?
No, nobody was trying to call. There's nobody in queue.
Oh, okay. Somebody, Robin Scott, tried to call in, I guess. Okay. I'll try call again, Robin.
All right, hold on.
Okay. And meanwhile, they're trying to get that going in there. I'll put the number in there for you guys. There we go. Anyway, I think as they're trying to get that call, so, but go ahead, call in, Robin. I'll be here. So, anyway, it's a matter of getting used to with the whole alien stuff. There's various races out there. There's literally thousands and thousands of races, and a lot of human-like ones too. Oh, the other thing too. This is pretty interesting. That people talk about the Pleiadians. They look like humans and everything, pretty much like us. Kind of the Nordic kind of look. When they go to the Pleiades, there is a phase that they're in. It's like kind of like a shift in time, so to speak, when they go toward their world. So they're kind of a little bit out of phase when they go back home. So they have to adjust to our time in order to be physical. So I always thought that was really interesting about that too. But there are lots of beings in various dimensions. There's other beings that also, that we share the same planet with, but you just can't see them because they are in a dimensional phase or time phase. It's kind of like a time dilation kind of thing. So anyway, that is something that I found very interesting about all these other beings, which we come from, and how we meet them. We have to adjust ourselves. Say, like, if we were to go into a different part of space, but it's in a different phase, whether it's time or dimensional, that we have to adjust our vessels in order to do so, in order to make it through that. Sometimes they have to change the effect on how our biology is as well, too. That's part of the reason why they even have, in the first place, shapeshifters, because they're able to adapt to certain environments, whether it's a really hot place or really cold. But it wasn't later used for the battle that took place out there to a lot later. Let's see. Let's see. Come on, Robin. I know you can do it. The interaction with them, well, my interactions was pretty diplomatic kind of thing. They are the Karels, and there's many of the Nordic types too. There are also, like I said, the Pleiadians, the Phalans. They are all out there, and of course the many different grays, even up to the tall whites. were very they were very scientific, very spiritual, very tall. I guess that's why I call them tall whites. But anyway, I would say that, yeah, sure, I think that's funny too. But they were the Valgans, and then they were also kind of a Nordic kind of thing. They look like, what's the best way to describe them? More of a, like, kind of like the Norwegian kind of guys. They look kind of like a Viking, kind of a little bit, to a lot of hair, a lot of beards. So they're like that. Some were kind of scruffy looking at some point too, but they were very, very soldier-like. They were very highly regarded too. They have like a hierarchy kind of government kind of thing, and then some of the reptilians have a hierarchy, and some have more of a imperialistic government. They live like that, and some are like clans in very small groups. So they're like in the Draco system. They have them like in clans out there. Let's see. They would have Draconia didn't have a really large fleet back in in my past life thing, but the Corells did. Let's see who else. The Serpent ones were good too. They had a really large fleet. They actually had many that lived on Earth for a long time before mankind even really started taking a foothold here. And let's see. There's also, what you actually would see, like the Greek ones, the Greek god type ones too. They were actually like they were like what do you call it? This is totally forgot who they were. Anyway, as far as like the Greek gods, there's Mars, Apollo, and so forth. They were down here. They didn't have Earth that much, really, other than try to take... Oh, yeah, the insectoids are good, too. The insectoids, I would have to say, they're very rigid. They do a lot of the clicking when they communicate. A lot of the abductions, they were pretty rough with a lot of the abductions, and they weren't always with the best interest, but they were more like scientists working with a lab rat. They're kind of like that, I would say. And of course, a lot of the Greys were a lot of scientists, but like I said, they're not as rigid as I said for a few other worlds that are like that. But other than that, they're pretty docile type. And then you got these short guys. They kind of look like gnomes, I guess. That's what the best to describe them, because they're kind of like little trolls, but they're short. They can be rough too, but they move really fast. And then we got your shadow type beings too, but they're multidimensional type beings. They've been seen around Earth quite a bit, but a lot of times they get confused with the other type of shadow beings, other type of entities mixed with it in the paranormal world, because they basically cover the same dimensional field, basically. And so that's all you're going to capture is just that shadow mass. But they can form to be solid once they gather enough energy to do so. There's another group of them that are like, I guess you would say, like the Mothman. it's people think it's kind of a demonic being, but it seems like it's always around when catastrophes take place. But even with that, they aren't seen quite as often. But the type of beings that are like that, even like the gargoyles type thing, were all over, early ages of Earth. And that's why, you always see these gargoyle statues around churches and the old structures and everything, because they're kind of like guardians, but actually they weren't, because they had a darker side. And of course they were part of what people call the war in heaven. Also took place on Earth as well. So they had a really, 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 really bad reputation, and I can understand why people fear the reptilians in that aspect. Let's see. And is Bigfoot and E.T.? I would say they're more here, but they were placed here, and so they're able to work very well with their environment. They're probably no different than a Wookiee. They're very close to the environment and care about their environment, very protective of their environment, and that's why they're so elusive, and they care about their families. So they want to keep them hidden. MIB. Well, there's several things to say about the MIB. The MIB is more, mixed, more alien than not. Mixed with the various DNA, and some were even were constructed using the alien DNA, because they have no real strong emotion. Matter of fact, you can actually cause one to trip up a little bit or stun them if you react to them in a certain way, like you express a certain anger toward them, like you're going to hurt them, or you ask them a harsh question, then they've just we get them to actually stop and kind of freeze. And they just kind of regather themselves to what they're going to say. Then a lot of times they repeat the same words. And they try to be more intimidating again. But MIB, some are pretty much like, extraterrestrial base as well. And of course, we got a question in there. Can we call a UFO to us? I would say so. Matter of fact, when we do our sky watches, I want to integrate this into our next sky watch. Everybody to do a meditation together and focus on an actual craft that we want to have a visitation. But as long as everybody's on the same wavelength, the same thought pattern, how we want them to communicate, and to make it a collective thought, and to make that communication for a sighting. Because this is pretty much what Stephen Greer does. He goes and has the entire team that he takes up there to do this meditation. And that's part of the thing what's highly important for us to do, to try to make this kind of communication, that you're open to receive this communication. So that's it could be easy. It's easy. Some people sometimes kind of go into squirrel mode, It's like you're trying to concentrate, and also, you lose your concentration in your meditation. But I think there's enough people in the team that could actually make the full contact to get the UFO to make an appearance, to give you a little bit of a light show, so to speak, to acknowledge you. So, that can actually happen. And there's other ways of making communications. do them even in the dream state. You can do it that way too. If you go through a deep meditation before bed and make a strong intent to try to make a communication that you wish to speak to them, a lot of times they will show up either shining a light through your window, showing that they've acknowledged you, or you would actually have something in a very strange dream, and then you kind of use your screen memories. So to try to create something, you may not quite get it a little bit. It's like they just had the strangest dream, as trying to tell me something, but I don't know what. There are people that I recognize, and they're saying something, but it's like they wouldn't normally say, but it's actually the being speaking to you in this form. So that way you're not going to be have any fear, basically. So that that's part of the ways that they can communicate. And I know a lot of people have had this happen. Strange dreams, because I think Christina is going through a little bit of that too, if I remember correctly, when she started talking about a dream. That's like part of the way of communicating, sending you a message kind of thing. So that's part of it too. And let's see, it's how we take it to when we have to act on what we get from the beings. You can either react in fear, or you can react in acceptance. And it's more of the acceptance that they are there. They're not here to harm you. If you create like a certain dialect with them, and you do it on a regular basis, and I want everybody else to try this too, to try to use a form of meditation before bed. And if you have trouble with meditation, try to put some kind of meditation type music. I use a lot of kind of more of a subtle type of sound that it hits that beta wavelength, and it helps enhance my perception a little bit. And then I use my mind and my third eye to try to communicate to them out there, and they, to me, it's like going home in communication like that. So I usually get a lot of my answers that way. It definitely keeps me calm and keeps my light mood all the time. Tiffany knows my humor, so. But anyway, matter of fact, the whole team knows my humor. It learns to keep myself centered. Being centered is the high key of learning how to deal with various situations, everyday life too. But it also shows you not to have fear, and that's a really big part too. That's why I feel when people pray and people have meditation, it plays a really big role. Whatever denomination that you're with and everything, do a little prayer, a little meditation, and you try to put that together, you're bound to get some really good results. I know there's a lot of guided meditations out there if you really have trouble trying to meditate, to try to help you through it, and then eventually you can learn how to do it yourself, how to guide yourself through a full meditation. And let's see. Let me think. Let's see. When I would, use a lot of Steve Roach type music, it helps me try to be more in a subtle way, the way he has his music arrangement. But it does touch on that little beta wave and that kind of wavelength to try to get you to relax faster. And I know Christina likes to go to either a park or even a cemetery to meditate, to be around nature, and that's a good part too. because what better way to be around nature to find that peace and searching for the answers that you need to search for. You're guaranteed to get your answers to. What I used to do with my second ex-wife, we used to go to the desert a lot. Matter of fact, actually down to Rachel, near Area 51. Gee, imagine going back down there. It would help me to be more relaxed around that area. There's a saying that there's more in the silence in the desert that is not really that silent, because you're actually listening to the earth itself. That's a good question, Robin. Should we get regressed? That depends on the person, because if you're really feeling that you need to find the answers about something about yourself, and if you're having unusual dreams that you're trying to figure out, or flashes about something, seeing yourself in a different place that you can't explain, basically, it's like a time capsule in yourself, and if you're paying attention to the waypoints of your life, and you keep getting these certain type of dreams over and over again, or something that seems like a powerful message, but it's not coming clear, a good regression might be able to help open and unlock from what that's all about. And it may be part of that inner self, your spiritual self, to go all the way back to where that is coming from. Because our energy holds so many memories, and every now and then, that's why we have dreams too, in fact. Because we can kind of key into various parts of our lives, multiple lives, into one. Finding out, it's like going to a library, basically, and find out what your answers are. But they're all hidden in you, because you've lived that life before, and you're just kind of going back to review what that meant. And sometimes you find more about what your mission in life is all about, or what needs to be changed. There's parts that I had to go through from what I'm going through now and what I went through back then. Am I repeating the same thing over and over again? Well, let's take a look back and find out if I made the same mistake back then. So that is a very key point, is to finding out yourself. And that's what I try to do when I try to talk to people and I look at them in the eye, especially if they're having trouble about their past and they want to know. So I kind of talk them through it and to try to get to that doorway of the mind that we always seem to be protective of. And they're blocked for a reason, too. So when it's like a time release for that particular time, that means it's time for you to open it. But not everybody knows how to open it. Rather than hypnosis and going through a regression to get to that point, to open that door. And, I know people are seeking for a good hypnotherapist, which is very true, and that's very hard to do. That is very hard to do these days, because not everybody's involved with past lives and, of course, UFO situations and abductions. So we're lucky to have one around our team, which is truly a wonderful person, Lori McDonald, here in the Sacramento area. And let's see. Third or first party. I would say definitely a third party. Definitely do the third party, because it learns how to separate yourself from the actual situation. If you had a traumatic time, there's no point in having to put you through the traumatic time again, and it makes you relive it all over again. So if you take yourself into the third party, you're being led into it, but you're looking at it like you were looking at a movie. So the whole emotional connection is better, I think, and I know Christina agrees with that too, is third party is by far the best way to go. Because if you've been abducted and you've gone through some traumatic situations, the whole fear factor and the whole work, even the pain, why would we want to do that? So, when I say pain, no pain, no gain, it's like, oh, screw that. Let's take it to the third person, and that way you're watching it as it takes place. And think about it this way, too, because when you were going through the traumatic period, if you were abducted, and you're doing your first-person view, and you're only seeing what's in front of you at the time. But now think about this. If you were to take it from the third-person view, you would have a lot more to see what's around you, what's across the room, what's behind that person, what that person doing, what that being is doing, from a different view that you couldn't see. Because we have to realize that when you're in, your true spirit self could actually record things 360 all the way around. That's around you through that time period, what you're going through. But now, when you go through regression, it puts you that, a step away out of the box so you can actually see what's actually going on around you. The things that you weren't physically looking at. So that's another part that's really, really a good way of going through if you do it through a third person. We're getting close to the end. Wow, already? That's the second hour. Wow. I can't talk like Christina. Anyway, I'd like to thank everybody for being there. I'm sorry Christina wasn't here because we could bounce off the walls with gab all we want together, but she allowed me for this time to gab for myself and while I'm keeping her feet warm. But yeah, I want to thank everybody for being there. Be sure to keep tabs on us on our website, on our Facebook page, and of course look me up, Rene Chavez, on Facebook, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. I'll be happy to share more of the experiences if you like. And let's see, what else? We had a MUFON meeting this Saturday. Yeah, and don't forget, check with Robin's Alien Zen, Robin Scott. It's a very spiritual, kind of got Buddhist base, but it's more of a really strong spiritual based page. And Robin's a sweet person, and she would love to have you look at her page too. It's about peace. It's about love. It's about how we can unite ourselves as one, because we are one. No matter where you're from, out there in space or down here on Earth. So we are all connected. It is all connected. The paranormal, it's all connected. And that's the reason why I'm here, to help put the puzzle together. That's why Christina is here, to put it all together. And we're trying to extend ourselves to other paranormal teams, UFO groups, and so forth, so that we can put this all together and not have to fear anything, because we shouldn't have to. So we all came from the source. We all came from out there, and we're just reuniting again and becoming one. But, I do want to thank everybody for you listening to me jabber. But there's a lot of stuff that are coming up, and we got conferences coming up, and it's a whole shebang. So keep your eyes, ears open, and remember to keep looking up, because that's where all the action is. So, let's see, what else I got? Christina, me, the rest of our team. Be sure to ask any of our questions. that you want to ask about the whole UFO community and paranormal. So I guess I'll catch you all in the rebounds, clowns, and let's see what else we got to say. If you got any UFOs or footage that you want to share them with me or with Christina. We'll look them over and see what we can come up with and try to analyze it all for you. So be sure to look us up, and I think that'll be a great thing to do. And if you had paranormal experience, you can share those as well. If you have conspiracy theories, hey, share that too, because there's a lot of conspiracies out there, and we want to bring out to the forefold so that everybody can see what's happening in our community today. All right, folks. Well, I guess we're about done anyway. But yes, just definitely look us up. And thank you, Tiffany, for running everything and keeping me together. Good night, Robin. Good night, Eddie. And good night, guests and more guests, and Christopher. And so we'll see her next time around. Christina will be back with us with the show, and we'll have another wonderful guest. Hopefully Ruben. We'll have Ruben hopefully by next week. Okay, well, I want to thank you all, and I'm ready to cut out of here, and I'll bid you good night. Am I clear? How'd I do? So did I ramble?